Well, so we told you that we'll bring you the latest recap of all that has been happening so far over the last 24 hours and culminating over the last 12 hours in that statement by the president giving that directive, Amavi.
Absolutely. Well, we want to begin with the efforts that we put into fighting this whole disease. So let's start off with President Akufo-Addo on Wednesday, March 11. I'm sure you remember where he announced that government had made available some $100 million as part of Ghana's preparedness and response measures to combat the coronavirus threat. President Akufo-Addo said it is necessary to step up the country's preparedness to fight the disease in case of an outbreak. Well, after that, the next day, March 12, on Thursday, the Health Minister, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, indicated that Ghana had recorded 2 cases of COVID-19. I want us to take a listen when that first announcement was made.
The Minister of Health has confirmed 2 cases of COVID-19. The cases were confirmed on the 12th of March, that's today, 2020. And the first cases to be reported in Ghana. Laboratory results of the 2 confirmed cases were received at the same time from the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research. Both individuals returned to Ghana, one from Norway and the other from Turkey. So these are imported cases of COVID-19. Both patients are currently being kept in isolation and are stable. We have initiated processes for contact tracing. I wish to assure Ghanaians that the government of Ghana, together with all health partners, will continue to work assiduously to ensure the situation is contained.
Well, following that announcement, some schools in the Greater Accra region, for instance, the Ghana International School, Lincoln Community School, took measures to prevent the spread by closing down their schools. Some universities, University of Ghana, well, that came yesterday. But let's go back to what happened yesterday after the Information Minister, Kojo Nkrumah, said government had reviewed its travel advisory in the wake of the coronavirus scare, shutting its borders to travelers from countries with more than 200 cases of the virus. Kojo Nkrumah urged airlines to stop affected travelers from boarding flights, while citizens and residents permit holders will be required to self-isolate for 14 days on arrival. Now, this is the travel advisory that came in. It says all travel to Ghana is strongly discouraged until further notice. Any traveler except for Ghanaian citizens and persons with Ghana residence permits who within the last 14 days has been to a country that has recorded at least 200 cases of COVID-19 will not be admitted into the Ghanaian jurisdiction. Airlines are instructed not to allow such persons to embark. Border posts are instructed not to allow such persons into the jurisdiction. There will be a mandatory 14-day self-quarantine for persons who are otherwise allowed to enter the Ghanaian jurisdiction. Guidelines for self-quarantine will be available at the various Ghanaian ports of entry. Enforcement protocols are being deployed in collaboration with state security and health authorities. Persons determined to be unable to satisfactorily self-quarantine will be quarantined by the state. Any admissible traveler who exhibits symptoms of COVID-19 will be quarantined and tested upon reaching Ghana. Item 1 of this statement takes immediate effect, and that's the appeal, really, the very first one, that all travel to Ghana strongly discouraged until further notice, but that's not the ban. Item 1 of that's it. And the final one, let's go down, let's read the final point there. So items 2, 3, and 4 take effect at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, March 17, which is tomorrow. So 2, 3, and 4. 3. So 2 says any traveler except for Ghanaian citizens and persons with Ghana residence permits who within the last 14 days has been to a country that has recorded at least 200 cases of COVID-19 will not be admitted into the Ghanaian jurisdiction. This takes effect tomorrow, Tuesday, as well as this one, the fact that there will be a mandatory 14-day quarantine for persons who are otherwise allowed. And then any admissible traveler who exhibits symptoms of COVID-19 will be quarantined and tested upon reaching Ghana. So this is the advisory that came in, but before that, well, again at this same press conference and where details were shared, which was on Saturday, before this press conference, there were actually rumors, but I want us to move away from that rumors and go back to what was confirmed by Dr. Bedu Sarkodie in that press conference.
Friday, the 13th of March, 2 more new cases were confirmed as COVID-19. Yesterday, late in the afternoon, we received report of 2 new confirmed cases from Noguchi Memorial Institute Medical Research. Contact tracing has started. This brings to a total of 6 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Ghana. With no death, all the 6 cases were imported into the country.
He further gave details of the new cases, which he says were reported in 2 regions.
The first is a 56-year-old man, a Ghanaian, who returned from a trip in the United Kingdom on the 4th of March. He stayed in UK for 10 days and came back. He developed symptoms on the 12th of March, reported to a hospital in Obuasi, and the case definition met the case, that of suspected COVID. The second is a woman, a female, and a student, Ghanaian student. She traveled out to the United States of America, stayed for, I think, 10 days or so. She came back on the 9th of March, and then on the 13th of March, she started having symptoms that later were evaluated to be compatible with a suspected case of COVID. Of 2 new confirmed cases from Noguchi Memorial Institute Medical Research. The first is the 42-year-old Ghanaian male who returned to Ghana on the 8th of March. He had traveled to Switzerland and UK in the past 14 days. The second case was a 41-year-old Ghanaian male. He reported to Tema General Hospital on the 14th of March with a history of fever and acute respiratory illness.
So details of those new cases as was announced. And then the University of Ghana cancelled lectures on all its campuses with immediate effect after a student tested positive for the novel coronavirus. So one of those 4 new cases, came from the University of Ghana. Here's Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Ebenezer Oduro-Owusu.
A few cases of COVID-19 have been identified in Ghana, including a case involving one of our non-resident students who returned from an international trip. I'm using this platform to reach out to all our students and other members of the university community to reassure you of management's commitment to ensure measures in the best interest of all, and appeal to all of you to remain calm. Let us remember that a student's case is an imported one. Together with institutional and national agencies, there's an integrated effort to handle the case at hand. There's no cause to fear, since we're pulling all available resources and efforts together to ensure better management of the situation. The university has put in place prevention, detection, and quarantine measures, which have already been activated. For those resident on campus, remain on campus as we go through the required protocols of contact tracing to avoid any spread to the immediate and large communities. Non-resident students are required to keep away from campus until further notice. By keeping to these measures, you strengthen the efforts of the university, the nation Ghana, and the world to stop this pandemic.
That's the University of Ghana's own announcement after recording a case. Professor Ebenezer Oduro-Owusu, Vice Chancellor of the University, making that communication on Sunday afternoon. Now, later on, same day, President Akufo-Addo, for the second time in less than a week, addressed the nation on steps being taken by government to stem the tide. He, among several recommendations, banned all religious meetings and restricted funeral gatherings to 25.
You may recall that on Wednesday, 12th March 2020, when I first spoke to you directly on this matter, I announced the first raft of enhanced measures taken in response to the pandemic. At the time, there had been no reported confirmed case of the coronavirus in Ghana. Since then, 6 confirmed cases have been announced, all of persons who recently traveled into the country. Advisories on how to manage the developments have also been announced by the Ministries of Health and Information. Public education is being intensified to ensure that citizens are well advised on preventive measures. Earlier today, Sunday, the 15th of March, 2020, I chaired a meeting of the Interministerial Committee on Coronavirus Response. After deliberations, I have decided, in the interest of public safety and the protection of our population, to review the public gathering advisories earlier announced as follows. Firstly, all public gatherings, including conferences, workshops, funerals, festivals, political rallies, sporting events, and religious events such as services in churches and mosques, have been suspended for the next 4 weeks. Private burials are permitted, but with limited numbers, not exceeding 25 in attendance. Secondly, all universities, senior high schools, and basic schools, i.e. public and private schools, will be closed Monday, 16th of March, 2020, till further notice. The Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministry of Communication, has been tasked to roll out distance learning programs. However, BECE and WASI candidates will be allowed to attend school to prepare for their examinations, but with the prescribed social distancing protocols. Thirdly, the Government of Ghana's travel advisory, issued earlier today, should be observed as announced. Fourthly, businesses and other workplaces can continue to operate, but should observe prescribed social distancing between patrons and staff. Fifthly, establishments such as supermarkets, shopping malls, restaurants, nightclubs, hotels and drinking spots should observe enhanced hygiene procedures by providing, amongst others, hand sanitizers, running water and soap for washing of hands. Sixthly, the Ministry of Transport should work with the transport unions and private and public transport operators to ensure enhanced hygienic conditions in all vehicles and terminals by providing, amongst others, hand sanitizers, running water, and soap for washing of hands. And seventhly, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development should coordinate with the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies measures to enhance conditions of hygiene in markets across the country. Additionally, as the experts conduct contact tracing, I appeal to all to cooperate with them to ensure that persons who have come into contact with positive cases are identified and supported. I've directed the Attorney General to submit immediately to Parliament emergency legislation in accordance with Article 21(4) C and D of the Constitution of the Republic to embody these measures. And I've further directed the Minister for Health to exercise his powers under Section 169 of the Public Health Act 2012, Act 851, by the immediate issuance of an executive instrument to govern the relevant profession. I call upon Parliament to support the executive in this national endeavor. As I said earlier, there's every need to observe prescribed social distancing and good personal hygiene to prevent community spread. We are determined to do whatever we can to prevent the spread of the virus and protect the population. All the measures that have been announced will be subject to constant review and enhancement if necessary. Fellow Ghanaians, these are not ordinary times. So let us all put our shoulders to the wheel. And I'm confident that together, by the grace of God, we shall overcome this challenge. May God bless us all and our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong.
Our president's given those directives yesterday in that address at 10 p.m. Roland Walker were waking up to new things, really. And I was speaking to one of our colleagues on Adom who said she saw some school children going to school. Apparently, they had not heard that schools had been closed today. So it looks like we have to adjust. And those hand sanitizers we've heard are really, really expensive. People are also panic buying, even though you're not supposed to do that.
Yes, definitely. And we also do know that this is why the education or the public education needs to be really widened by way of the scope, so that everybody within every section of the country would have access. And we also do know that we have various segments or categories of people within the demographics of our population who either will be able to assimilate information adequately, and that's what we mean, whether they will be able to decode it, understand what the president meant by all the directives he's giving, and how they also communicate that to their dependents or those around them is also another issue. And so it's not a bit unusual to find that children are still going to school. It's also because their parents have not had the information for which they have to transfer that information to them. But you also get to find that it depends on which area or which level that you are in the society. You get to have speedy transmission of information. And so if you live in some category or you belong to a certain class, then of course it also means that your guardians or those who take care of you are very much on top of or abreast of many issues. And I believe that this is where the various MMDAs or the various metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies need to take the information down to the people. And we need to make sure that the various chief executives do that. They give the directives based on what the president had said so that it gets to the communities. We should know that once somebody has a case, before it is discovered, it is tested, deemed to be positive. That person may have interacted with many people, tens of people. And that would mean that all categories of people in the society, whether the person came in, because this is an imported or these are imported cases, they may have interacted with taxi drivers or people who offer commercial transport services. They may have interacted with those in the hospitality industry, and ultimately with people who are close to them. Could be friends, could be family, could be business associates. And so it means that that is where we have to take the next level.
Yeah. Well, schools have been shut, but not all students are expected to stay away from the classroom. So, for instance, if your child is writing the basic education certificate examination, they're still expected to go to school. There are some protocols that the president indicated will be put in place. So you have to speak to the head of your institution, particularly if your child is in, the higher levels and they're going to be writing some form of examination. You have to clarify that. Well, we were told in the earlier address on Sunday, that press briefing, that one of the persons who had the virus took himself, and Roland, I think you hinted on it again, carried himself to one of those facilities. Thankfully, this was the designated facility, one of the designated facilities that this person went to. The other one is also very close to us. That's the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. That's where our colleague Kojo Yangsing paid a visit and he checked out one of the isolation centers, interacted with Dr. Emmanuel Sropanyo, who is Chief Executive Officer of the hospital.
I'm here at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. This is one of the designated treatment centers for any possible COVID-19 outbreak. Now, the health director, Dr. Sropanyo, is on duty, even though it's a Sunday. And he's agreed to educate us a bit about what RAGE is doing particularly to help Ghana's preparedness to combat COVID-19. Dr. Sropanyo, thank you so much for speaking to us today. It looks like quite a tough job managing logistics for one of the hospitals designated for COVID-19. How has the work been so far?
Thank you very much, first of all, Joy FM, for coming for this interview. And I have to agree with you that it is indeed a tough job, having to, within a short period of time, having to marshal an organization or marshal a team to respond to this threat. Indeed, it's a tough job. So we have the dimensions of the work involve organizing the people, getting the logistics ready, getting financial resource to purchase those logistics that are not available, and then getting the center, the physical infrastructure also ready. And I must say that in a large measure, we have secured most of the things that we need to fight this menace.
So one of the facilities here is an isolation center. Can you show us?
Yes, I can show you the general area.
Okay,
let's go.
So the place is sort of set apart.
Yes, that is the first information that it is. It's really isolated from the main service delivery point.
Right.
And so we are at pains to bring this information to attention of the public, that they are still safe to come to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital to receive routine services that we interfere with our routine servicing.
Okay. Yes. Now, is that something that you tend to inform your patients about when they come here? Do you have patients asking how safe this place is?
To tell you the truth, a couple of my own patients, I am an obstetrician, gynecologist, I deliver women. A couple of pregnant women asked me, so doctor, is it safe for me to come and deliver here with this designation? And I assure them that by no means is the place any close. And so after I've shown you the area where it is located, you appreciate that fact, that it is far removed from routine service delivery areas of the hospital.
Right.
If your temperature is high, there's some few questions I've asked you. Have you traveled? Have you come into contact with somebody who has traveled to any of the affected countries? And so on and so forth. When any of these answers are positive, then you are presumed to be straight positive. And then the staff, the officer who is in charge of screening will now engage you and take your necessary samples. If we have facilities, then at that time we will also detain, depending on the circumstances, we will also detain you in an isolation center until the results come. If the results come and it's negative, you have your freedom. If the results come and it's confirmed positive, then we transfer you to where the confirmed case is.
Right. Okay. So that means that now that you have the pre-triage process, then those who are operating the pre-triage, they are also facing some modicum of risk, aren't they?
Yes, because somebody can be triaged, so therefore they are also advised to use some basic PPE, like having a face mask, and then hand gloves, and then making sure that the patient is positioned in a way that he does not come too close. And we want the public to also understand. Because normally when you go to the hospital and staff are keeping themselves distant from you, people think that the staff are not being nice. You know, the staff are not being nice. But now we are in a situation where we are trying to we are trying to so when you meet such scenarios, that people will be their response.
You find the general public to be about coronavirus when you interact with them? You talked about one of your patients wondering whether this place is safe, but did they have a lot of general information about how the virus works, what to do to stay safe?
I must say that this is a new virus. Nobody has adequate information yet. I don't think the general public has enough education yet. Even some medical staff, we ourselves, we are still learning. We are still learning and gathering information as far as the virus is concerned. Yes.
So does Ridge Hospital take the opportunity to perhaps give people tips and so forth on how to stay safe?
For me, the thrust of my interest is how to make sure that as a country we contain this condition. How to make sure that as a country we are able to contain this condition. So my advice, or it has been said that the two major, or let's say the three major ways in which this condition can be avoided or this condition can be contained is: number one, social distancing; number two, adequate hand hygiene; and number three, avoiding touching your face, nose, and the mouth. This, at the end of the day, we can summarize the entire efforts to these three. Social distancing means that we keep a little bit far apart from each other, especially those that may be sneezing or coughing. Because when you sneeze, because we know that when you sneeze, the particles, the saliva particles, are able to travel a distance of about 1 meter. So if you stand a bit away from the person, a little over 1 meter, then the particles are not likely to get to you. That is the thing that we call the social distancing. Make sure that we don't have large gatherings where we are forced to shake hands and contaminate each other as much as possible. That is the first one. And then the second one is hand hygiene. And so hand washing under running soap is one of the things. Under running water, sorry. Hand washing under running water with soap is one of the things that have been advocated, and this is able to take the viral particles completely away from the hand. And in between times of hand washing, we should have our hand sanitizers on us, so that from time to time we can sanitize. Because what happens is that you may have washed your hand, but your phone may be contaminated. So you wash your hand, you go back to take your phone, you punch some few numbers. Every now and then you receive a call on your phone. If your phone is contaminated, what then happens? And so on and so forth. So it's important to have, even in addition to hand washing, from time to time, to be in a position where you can sanitize your hands.
Well, you heard the Director of Health for the Greater Accra Regional Hospital explaining that this coronavirus disease has brought about a war. Behind me is where the casualties of this war are being kept and taken care of. We'll be finding out what we can about this isolation center, the infectious disease isolation center here at Ridge Hospital. But I want us to meet one of the soldiers on the front lines of this fight. His name is Prince Osei Frimpong. Prince, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.
So help us understand what you do here at the isolation center.
I am in charge of the disease control unit, and we are responsible for all the epidemic conditions that report to the facility. So as part of our job description, when we come to work, we make sure that all cases that have the potential to cause epidemic, we trace them, follow them up, pick their samples, send the samples to the respective labs within the country. Here we're talking about Noguchi, medical research institute. We also have the public health defense lab at Kolebu. So with respect to the COVID-19, what we do is that when the cases report to the facility, we have our nurses at the triage points, the various OPD within the facility. So they do the assessment. When they fall within the category of being a suspect or a probable case, then they call the hotlines, of which my number is included. So assessment. And when we see that you still fall within the case definition, then we do what we call holding. So we hold the case, we pick their samples, then we send the samples to Noguchi for confirmation before we be allowed or to discharge home.
So in order for you to be kept here, you have to actually have a confirmed case.
You have to be confirmed positive.
Positive.
Before you be kept here.
So, for those who are kept here, what service do you provide for them?
For those who are kept here, usually when you are brought in here, we do what we call contact tracing. So we make sure that all contacts related to the case are assessed. We pick their name, we pick their age, the sex, we pick the occupation they do, we pick their residence address, then we pick their contact numbers. Then when they came in contact with the case, we do this, then we forward the information to National. National for now has a team responsible for the contact tracing. So we usually do the preliminary assessment and we forward it to National.
How do you define a contact for those who have been confirmed positive? What sort of contact do you determine will require tracing?
If you have been in relation with the case, we assess you as a contact. Whether you start
with a confirmed case.
With a confirmed case. If you have been in relation with a confirmed case, then we assess you as a contact. So whether you sat with him or her in the same classroom, at the workplace, or any environment that she or he has was available, then we classify you as a contact. So from that point, then we also need to follow you up to see whether you are showing signs and symptoms of the condition for a period.
So how far back will you trace into the life of a confirmed case to determine the contact? How far back?
Usually that will be determined by the case. So I come to you as a case who have been proven positive. So now I have to find out from you which people came in contact with you for this period.
Which period? That's what I mean.
So we go as much as the person can. So for now, we are using the fact that the person has a traveling history. So when she returned from wherever she went to, then the contact she has made with those people, then we have to follow them up, as I explained earlier on.
So basically from the moment they return to Ghana?
From the moment they return to Ghana, then we do the contact tracing from there.
So everybody they come in contact with, when they wake up in the morning, the people in their compound or where they go and buy water, the people in their classroom or their office, all of these people, you will have to trace them.
So we are going to trace every person that she's come in contact with for this period I'm talking about. Like when she was confirmed and when she returned from wherever she went to.
Yeah, so like the examples I gave, you have to find all these people.
We have to find all these people.
Right.
We have to find all these people, provided she can give us the details of them.
So for those that she doesn't have the details, like perhaps her person who came by and she bought
so in that respect, it's difficult to get them. But we usually ask them where she has been to. So if she's been to school, let's say University of Ghana, or Cape Coast, or KNUST, then we have to find out the department that she was. If we got to know the department, then we can assess from there which people that she attended lectures with, or if she has to do with, let's say, a health worker, which people that she was on duty at that particular moment or period that she returned. So we take it out from there. So if it has to be the seller on the road, it will be difficult. It's going to be difficult for us to follow those people. But then we still go on to say that if you are showing.
So, well, there it is. That's the isolation center here at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. Now, Dr. Sroff, tell us about this center. What's the capacity?
Yeah, unfortunately, this place is a very well-designed center. Each of the patients has its own area of to stay. It's self-containing, and you have your bed. You have the necessary gadgets in the room to monitor you. You have a hand sanitizer. You have your own washroom, your bath, and then your sink where you can wash your hand. Unfortunately, we have the capacity is such that we can take only maximum of 4 persons at a time. So that is one of the drawbacks of this center. It is well designed, and the environment is perfect. The isolation is so good from the main part of the hospital, but the capacity is small. That is 4.
How many patients do you have there at the moment?
Currently, to the best of my knowledge, about 2 patients are there currently.
Okay.
Yes.
What can you tell us about those patients?
Well, they are generally doing well. They are being kept there more for the purposes of isolation to minimize contact with other people. That is the main reason, not that they are particularly sick. No, we are not even giving them any major treatment, but basically for the purpose of isolation, so that they don't contact more people and create more problems.
Are they better now than they were when they came in?
One of them is better. The other one was not bad when he came, and it's still like that. One who had a temperature is now far better than she came in.
Okay, so that's 1 male, 1 female.
Yes.
Okay, which of the cases, can you tell us which of the cases the public is aware about that you are keeping here?
Actually, we are not allowed to give any details unless it comes from Ghana Health Service headquarters. The headquarters itself, when they feel that there is a critical information that they can give to the public concerning particular patients, they are the ones who are mandated, because we want to avoid confusion in the minds of the public. And so, as you can see, even Ghana Health Service is not the one who is communicating. It's the minister, the Honorable Minister himself, together with the Minister of Information. They are in charge. Well, our job is to gather information sent to the headquarters, and their job is to do the communication.
So how many staff do you have looking after the patients you have at the moment?
Currently we have 2 nurses there, and they are the disease control officers. They are also around on duty currently.
Any doctors?
We have doctors too. They are not there physically, but they are on call. They are around. They are around the environment.
So at the moment, would you say that they have everything they need to manage these 2 cases?
Yes, they have. We have everything we need to manage those 2 cases, but things can easily run out, and so we do know that our superiors within the Ghana Health Service headquarters are working around the clock to get the additional logistics that are needed. Those other logistics that are within the domain of the hospital too, we are also working hard to make sure that those other logistics are provided so that the place will run continuously. What we have been able to achieve so far, for the past 1 week or so, we've been running the place continuously. So at any point in time, there are staffs who are working there, whether we have a patient or not. There are staffs, because we can have a situation where middle of the night a patient is rushed in there, maybe a case is rushed into that center. So we must always have a staff. So that is one thing that we've been able to achieve at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. We have a continuous presence of staff.
Now, the capacity is 4.
Yeah.
And contact tracing is going on for the cases, the 6 cases that have been identified across the nation.
Yes.
So if this contact tracing yields more positive cases, what happens after your 4th admission? What happens next?
As you know, the Greater Accra Regional Hospital is not the only designated center. Tema General Hospital is also a designator. They have more beds. They also have a little bit more beds than us. Our advantage is their presence in the middle of the city. They are a bit on the side, but they have more beds. So if Ridge is overwhelmed, they are there. And government, as you heard earlier on, government is working, or the Ministry of Health is working hard to identify other facilities that can be used. Eventually, the plan is to designate the Greater Accra Regional Hospital Isolation Center because of the good design for treatment of severe cases, while the mild cases can either be held at home or be transferred to any of the other designated centers.
Right.
Yes.
Do you have a designated or dedicated ambulance?
Yeah, that is the way we should go eventually. But what happens is that for now, other ambulances are used to bring the patients, and then they are disinfected, or they are treated to make sure that any infection is cleared before they are ready to be used again. That is if we know that they are used to convey a confirmed case.
Okay. Do the patients get visitors?
We don't allow them to get visitors. We don't even allow their family members to bring them food from the house. So we provide, the hospital itself provide their feeding. We provide feeding from our canteen to the staff, because we don't want a situation where a family member will come, a family member who hasn't got any this thing will come and having to pick something from here. So we once we bring the person here, we will continue the testing until it's negative, then we can release it back to your family. This is the national protocol. We are only abiding by the national protocol.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Sofenu.
you. Thank you.
Oh, great education there.
Absolutely. And now you know how it looks like. Now you know the necessary protocols in place. This is one of the main designated centers, the Accra Regional Hospital. Kojang Singh bringing us that. We've got plenty more conversations on this coronavirus. For instance, when we come back, Bishop Fred Kranchimens of the Transformation Assembly Church will be joining us for a conversation still on coronavirus and how the churches are taking particularly the fresh directives that came from the president last night.
We told you, following that directive by the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, that mass gatherings need to be halted. And for example, he gave the example of funerals, mass funerals halted, except when they transition into private ones with 25 people in attendance. And before then, we saw a number of people, including my church, attending church services, etc. But following this, how is the Christian community taking this, as well as the other faith that we have? And so we decided to bring into the studio a counseling psychologist, but also the Reverend Bishop Fred Kranchimens of the Transformation Assembly. And he's here. Good morning to you. He's a regular on the show, and thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well.
What did you make of the president directive in the first place?
I understand that in a crisis situation, the psychologist will tell you blood moves from the decision-making part of the brain, and it goes to the fight or flight mode. So any decisions taken drastically or hastily might not be the best. I understand that the motives behind it is good, but I thought that they could have included stakeholders. I'm not too sure what went into making those decisions, but I thought that in times like this, religion plays an important role. In my PhD research, there is something I discovered called religious coping. In times like this, people have to cope religiously. We have to empower people to also, because when science is not doing too well, religion can do better. So I think that making that decision and the duration, there are other ways we could have looked at it. For instance, in Holland, the government is trying to contain and to avoid spread. So churches can meet, but the congregation should not be above 100. So there are those modalities we could have looked at if they had involved stakeholders, taking that from, Ghana is a faith nation. Whether we say it is not secular or it is secular or what, the reality of the matter is that Ghanaians are faith people. There are Christians, there are Muslims, there are traditionalists. We are all faith people. So when you try to do anything that takes away religious coping, so to speak, I don't think it will serve us too well. So I am of the view that, well, maybe the decision was taken in a drastic mode, in a hasty mode. We can go back to the table and review it. And then
do I get the understanding you're saying you disagree with the president's position?
Not totally. Not totally. I agree that if this thing is not managed well, it will create problems for the nation. But in managing it, I thought that there are stakeholders. Christians, we have leaders, we have opinion leaders, Muslims do have. I thought that we should all be included in the decision that concerns us. I know it's not only affecting religious bodies, all gatherings, but at least religion has a role to play in coping Religion has a role to play. And what I'm saying is both spiritual and scientific. It is based on research. Religious coping is effective in times like this. So once again, I will call for a review with stakeholders involved in the decision making.
And if it's supposed to be review, in your estimation, how should that review be?
We possibly can consider the numbers, number one. If you have a church of 500 congregation, you can split it into clusters, like you have first service, second service, third, fourth, fifth, so that at a particular point in time, there are not more than 100 people or even 50 people congregating. These are other ways of looking at the same problem, and you get the same result. Because if you say nightclubs can meet, but churches cannot meet and the mosque should close down, are you telling us nightclubs are more responsible in dealing with this issue than religious bodies? Obviously not. Because people who go to the nightclub, probably or possibly they are drunk, decision making is not too well. How well can they manage that more than religious bodies? So I think a review is very necessary.
You gave an example of Holland, but we also do know that in some societies, especially in westernized societies, the related issues of socialization and culture plays a key role in the way they socialize. And if you just oppose that to the African setting, we have a cultural setting which doesn't inhibit us from touching, from hugging, from doing all sorts of things when we're in the mood of the spirituality of practice. And so that is why mass gatherings, for example, in a church, in which even the message could be an inhibition because it is faith-based to accepting what is not supposed to be the norm within the directive that the president has given. And so it's acceptable that religious bodies should make sure that they don't meet.
Should make sure they don't meet is not the only way of looking at it. How about making sure that they meet, just like the nightclubs, but they practice good hygiene, they put all these things the experts are proposing into practice? Is another way of looking at it, because I am looking at the negative effect of not meeting. People are saying you can pray on your own. How many people are trained to pray on their own in their houses? There is something that corporate prayer can do. There is something that fellowship can do. Roland, you'll be surprised when we went to church yesterday. Obviously, a lot of people did not turn up because of the fear. And that's another thing I think we should talk about. So the numbers were low, number one. But you could see that after service, people were relieved. Because in our congregation, we did a presentation on the issue. And then, of course, we used the word of God to encourage the people, to inspire hope, you know, to let them see the aftermath of all this. Because we are stronger than this virus. We have brains, we have resources, and we can deal with this virus. So when you come together and you teach people like that, you liberate them. They become empowered. So I'm looking at people missing that. You know, it affects their ability to cope and to deal with the situation.
And they can't get this sort of help, this sort of messaging through other virtual means beyond just congregating physically?
They can, but not as well as if we are together. There is something that happens when we come together. You know, social gatherings have effect on your mind, effect on other parts of your life. It's important. So what I'm simply saying is that I understand that, you know, leadership comes with a lot of burden and responsibility. I'm not faulting the government for taking this decision, but I think that it is, number one, drastic, number two, hasty, so we can go back to the drawing board and review.
You go to China, you go to Iran, you go to Spain, Italy. Social gatherings are the means by which this is spreading. Even just over the last 6 hours, bars, restaurants, and other gatherings, such as even the churches, have been prohibited. What else?
You see, even in America, where they have mega churches, okay, They have left the decision for Christian leaders or religious leaders to make. Nobody has banned religious gatherings in America. They have mega churches, you know, but they have a way of dealing with it.
So you're saying that we should leave the decision making to Opambo, Obinim, Bishop Nicholas and the rest to make on behalf of all of you?
These are not the only clergymen in Ghana. We have Bishop Ajinasari, my mentor. We have Dr. Mensa Otabel. So let's consider them. Those and that category is more than the category you are mentioning. The church is still relevant in the nation. The church is a partner in terms of development, etc. The church is capable. The church is wise because we operate in the wisdom of God. So they should trust us enough to make an input in this decision.
There's a formal statement that has even come from a churchly leader like Bishop T.D. Jakes, who has called off services.
Some of them have.
Is he not one of your mentors?
Nobody issued a decree that they should not meet. He assessed his peculiar situation. He has a congregation of about 20,000. It's not manageable. Somebody has a congregation of 50. It's manageable. So you leave it to the church leaders. You know, we have opinion leaders. We have intelligent people.
I go to a church and our congregation is around 3,000, 4,000.
Yes, it can be managed. It can be managed. It can be managed. You split it into clusters. You can have 100 congregation services. It is possible. It can be managed. It can be managed. We just have to review it, sit down, relax, and then review the decision, because I still maintain that it is drastic, which is necessary in crisis situations, but it is also hasty, so it calls for review. You know, we can make it better. If even it's good, we can make it better.
So your review position is that they should allow churches to meet in 50s?
They should include stakeholders. You know, I'm not too sure what went into this decision, but hearing the president, he talked about himself and his cabinet, no religious leaders, so they should include stakeholders who understand the church situation better to make input into this, and it will be a better decision, not just a good one.
You know, the president, per the Constitution, has the onerous responsibility to do this.
Of course, that's why he has done it. But I think that I said that if something is good, we can make it better. I'm not saying he acted out of Constitution. He acted, you know, he broke the Constitution to make this decision. It's part of it. And I said leadership comes with burdens and responsibilities. I'm not faulting anybody. I'm just saying we should go back to the table with the involvement of stakeholders and review this.
On the African continent, we have Kenya, Rwanda. Churches are now operating. And you want that to take place right here in our country?
In Kenya? I know about Rwanda. I don't know about Kenya. I have friends in Kenya who went to church yesterday. If it is today, I'm not too sure.
Mass gatherings, all prohibited in respective countries.
That's why I keep saying we should break it down. Don't issue a decree, so to speak, that gatherings should be prohibited, including religious gatherings, because of the benefits we can get from religious gatherings. I talked about religious coping. It's very important in times like this. You see, people draw close to God. You also talked about culture. You see, even in Holland, they hug and kiss, yet they go to church. We don't hug, we don't kiss, we just shake hands. And yesterday we made sure nobody shook hands. We are trying to put all these things for our own good, you know, to help the government in containing this crisis situation. So in terms of culture, we are even in a better position because we don't kiss, we don't do other things. It's not part of our culture. So I think that we can manage this better. It's good, but we can do better.
We'll come back to you on the subject.
Sure.
But also affected are schools of all categories, from tertiary institutions to basic level. And so we would want to speak to the NGOs, but also civil society organizations doing great work in observing, doing research in education. And we'll bring into the studio, we're streaming him, Peter Ante. He's Executive Director for the Institute for Educational Studies. Good morning to you, Mr. Ante. If you look at the directive from the President, it looks to have a certain finality to all the trepidations, or you can say the anxiety that the lack of direction or directives seem to have had on the population, wouldn't you say? And so this is good for the education sector.
Yes, it's good. We were expecting this earlier, and that is why when this issue broke out, I think a few weeks ago, we came out with concentrate various education institutions to start moving to online teaching, because we learned from research that during the Ebola crisis, a lot of educational institutions were affected in Africa, especially Sierra Leone, Guinea, Senegal, and all those countries that were hit by the crisis, which led to the closure of schools. Now, when this happened, we saw that schools in China were closed, Italy, and the other countries started embarking on such a measure. And this was because one of the places that we get these kind of gatherings is our schools and our kids. One way to contain particular outbreak would have been to close the schools as early as possible, so that when this is managed to a certain level, we can go back to our education. But it has an implication on the educational system and other things that we have to talk about.
If you take a situation of having this suspension for 4 weeks, what could be the ultimate benefits, but also the implications, as you just mentioned?
Yeah, so the ultimate benefit is that in the case where there is an outbreak in a large scale, our kids will be safe, because there will not be any kind of gathering in the schools for them to contact it and then get it. So that will be the ultimate benefit. Now, the implication is that most academic calendar will be affected. We are praying that we be able to contain this, but if it escalates and we suppose 4 weeks, if we go beyond the 4 weeks, then it means that the academic calendar is going to be affected, especially in tertiary institutions whereby people are supposed to complete the education by May ending, and then early as June, different kind of students come on campus to do sandwich, and then school resumes in August for another academic year. It means that if we are going to send this beyond 4, then the academic calendar is going to be affected. And that is why we, from the Institute of Education, kept reminding various issues, especially the universities, to, as early as possible, roll their students on various e-learning platforms, so that at least we're able to keep them engaged and then continue the academic. That is what is done in most of the other countries that are technologically advanced, and they have those down. Unfortunately, most of our schools are not having this kind of technological infrastructure. But I hope they learn from this, that going forward, the system by which we are always interested in physical contact before we deliver education would be addressed.
If there are disruptions, as you say, to the academic calendar, how can some sort of restitution be done in terms of trying to cover for the time and space that is lost?
The ultimate education will be that if you were supposed to complete school in May, you might have to send it to August. Then it means that the curriculum that you're supposed to go through, you have to compress it to make sure you do. There will not be intensive teaching and learning, you might not have the opportunity to get a lot of content that you need in order for you to function well in society. You see, let me make this point. When this happened in countries, the Ebola issue, schools were closed for 8 months, 12 months. And the effect was that when you read the World Bank report and other research reports that were carried out, the effect, when they reopened, most of students could not even recollect where they go to invert. And this happens in countries where the educational system is so strong. So it's important that as early as possible, we pray that the issue does not escalate. Because if it does, we're going to have a very serious issue with the educational system, because the infrastructure at both the urban center and the rural areas are not safe. Definitely, it's going to be difficult for us to make up the kind of loss of contact hours and learning activities that students would have to be exposed to. It's going to be very difficult for us to do that, and this would end and having a very serious effect on the educational system.
There was something I wrote on my Facebook page. I thought it was important that the perhaps the upper echelons of our educational ladder took cognizance of it. And that's the use of virtual means or perhaps technology to enable students either do some distance learning through internet networks or some platforms, and even undertaking their interim assessment examinations or mid-semester examinations, and ultimately even end of semester ones. If you look at the structures we have on the ground, how is that feasible?
It's going to be difficult.
Why?
That is why when we released our paper on the outbreak of infectious disease about 2-3 weeks ago, we were just limiting ourselves to the tertiary institutions, because when it comes to the secondary schools and the basic schools, the primary and theaters, it's practically impossible to do this. What we can do with that one would be to limit ourselves to the tertiary institutions, which is possible that we can do, because we go to some of the universities in Ghana, especially the University of Cape Coast, they have e-learning platforms that the lecturers engage students. I think Lekondu might have Ashasi and UST, most of the institutions. But the problem is that it's not on a large scale. So when these things started coming up, what we were thinking was that the university system would quickly resource their IT professionals to upscale this infrastructure, e-learning platform, so that they will continue to engage. So in this case where lectures have been suspended, lecturers will still be communicating with their students on their various learning platforms, giving them assignments, marking them, doing them, and then end of them. It's possible we could have done that, and we should be able to do it. And if we are able, if we have the resources, which I think the government should in and support and enable the universities to do that. The basic schools, the DSS and the SSS, maybe we have to go to the television program that they've started. I think your platform has got one where teachers come and teach on television for students to follow. I think maybe that would be one of the easiest ways to keep the students active in terms of their academics, because our focus would be on the students' ability to collect what they've been learning and after they've gone through the period of the break, especially when the break is very extensive, it's very long.
Okay. And I would want to come back to the story, but before I do that, you go to church, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I have Bishop in the studio, and he disagrees. He says before the president came out with that directive that churches should not hold their congregation or the events in terms of the services, perhaps they should have been widely consulted. Would you advocate for a direct ban on the services in the meantime, or you would have wished that perhaps after the consultation with the religious bodies, they could do some kind of phase out? So if you have a 1,000-member congregation, you can congregate maybe in 50s or in 20s or hold various services in turns. What's your own opinion as a Christian on the subject?
I think I'll go with the president. You see, we don't have to wait for the thing to escalate. So I think this is an interim measure. I don't think it's going to have a very bad effect on the Christian community. We should be able to suspend gathering for some time so that we are sure that this thing is not getting out of hand. We can get back to our various church activities. And of course, nowadays, most of these churches have Facebook page. They do Facebook Live almost every Sunday. And I think we should resort to.
Well, Peter, you don't go to church often, do you?
No, I do.
Okay.
The Presbyterian Church of Ghana, which I'm a member.
Which church? Presby?
Yes.
That's why. That's why.
Yeah, we are doing Facebook Live for Lent period, and
Peter, you're orthodox. That's why. Peter Anti, Executive Director for Institute for Education Studies, a think tank. They do research on the subjects of education, but we still have Reverend Bishop Dr. Fred Kranche Mensah of the Transformation Assembly. And if we have to now do a re-engagement with the presidency, where do we start? How do we start it?
They would have to initiate it. They would have to call us.
Well, you have concerns. So
yes.
why would you want them to? They've already instituted the ban.
That's why I am saying on this platform that we should reconsider it. So that's our initiative. You have given us a voice to talk about it. So I know they will hear. When they hear, they should invite us. Let's sit on the table. Peter Nt said that he agrees with the president. I understand. From where he stands, he will see things differently from where I stand. I'm standing on a clergy platform. He's standing on a congregant platform, so we may see things differently. So I respect his opinion, but that's because he sees it differently.
He's a layman.
Exactly so.
You see it from the spiritual angle.
Not exactly. I see the complete picture. All right. I see from where I stand. I see the complete picture.
So far, we've not had any religious grouping or church profess a cure for coronavirus, COVID-19, and you say we should congregate, even if it's small numbers.
Science has not brought out any cure, but they are still trying. There are two ways in dealing with situations. If you can eliminate it, you eliminate it. If you can't, you manage it. Okay? In psychology, we have, let me say in counseling psychology, we have coping skills. We have problem-focused coping, where you have the capacity to eliminate the problem. It's not all problems we can eliminate or get out of our way. If you cannot, you practice what we call emotion-focused. You try to manage it. You try to deal with your thinking and your emotions around the situation. So we may not be able to, for now, cure it, but we are helping in managing. We are helping people's thinking. We are helping. You see, yesterday when I saw the few people who made it to church, when I saw them, I saw fear. I saw hopelessness. I saw anxiety.
So the church gives them hope.
Exactly so. You see, what we hear, our eyes and our ears are gates to our minds. What we hear and what we see determines what we think about, and what we think about determines the way we feel and the way we act. So seeing these things on the media, hearing the news, one of my issues is the way the news is reported and the way it comes out. So because information is important, knowledge is power. When you give me information, you have empowered me. But there's a difference between good knowledge and bad knowledge. Number two, if even the information you have is the right information, the way of dissemination, how you go about it, has a psychological effect on my thinking. You see, they have heard all these things throughout the week. They came to church depressed. They came to church down. And after service, you could see light on people's faces. The church has a great role to play in this.
And the church cannot play that role except to congregate them, physically bring them together.
That's not what I'm saying.
That hope also will not be in the various public education messages.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about religious coping. There is something the church, the mosque, religion can do that nothing can do. You see, religion is playing a role in this nation government cannot do, scientists cannot do, professors cannot do. They should leave that to religious leaders, giving hope to the people, helping people to think straight, shaping behavior, getting people to behave well. You see, only God knows how our society would have become if religion does not play a role in our society. So religion is so important, so I call on government again to include the stakeholders in this and review their decisions.
There are other societies better developed than ours for which religion is important, but it's not an integral aspect of the way they develop.
Better development is relative. If you're looking at development as physical, then you may be right. But the human being is tripartite, spirit, soul, and body. If you develop your body physically and your soul is not developed, your mind is not developed, your intellect is not developed, and your spirit is not developed, it's not a holistic development. You see, so if you say so-called Western societies who are well developed, that's relative. It's just physical development. There is also soulish. So
you're saying their souls are weak?
That's not what I'm saying. I am saying...
What are you saying?
I am saying religion plays an equally important role in developing the soul and the spirit of man, which is also a part of the human being. So if you are developed physically and your soul and your spirit is not developed, it's not the best. I'm talking about...
So those in Germany, America, etc., have undeveloped souls.
They will be in a better position to say, assess themselves and say. But I'm saying religion is playing that role in Africa, especially in Ghana particularly.
We've had many wars in Africa. And religion has always played roles on the continent, but we still had conflict.
Let's look at the good side of religion.
Well, we have to go onto the phone lines, and please, we'll urge you to call us through the number. We'll put the numbers on your screens. Two numbers, 03022116991 or 2. Again, let me just go through the number, 03022116991 or 2. Please call us. And what do you think of the President's directive? We've also been having a conversation on the directive relating to a halt in churches, congregating, etc., of which Bishop Doctor disagrees and says that we need to have a proper relook at that directive, and also the subject of education. Schools across board are closed down. Now let's go to Kaneshi, where we have Robert. Bob.
Yeah, good morning, Roland.
Charlie Tete.
Yeah, fine. Well, you
Charlie Nyami.
Hey, Roland.
Please go ahead.
In fact, you see, the peace of this nation, right from 1992 till now, the church has played a very significant role in terms of prayer. The president having the peaceful mind rule the nation is because of the church that is praying always. I can't imagine the president and he said interministerial committee meeting, they said churches shouldn't meet, but night class should meet. It doesn't make sense to me, seriously. Night class, that is not social gathering, it is. And churches close down for the next 4 weeks, but night class, go ahead and do your own thing. I don't think it makes sense. They should go back to the table again. If they said social gathering, then let's include everything. Why would you say night class? I mean, what informed that decision? Night class,
Robert.
Meet, but church who prays for the nation don't meet. Good morning again.
Robert, which church do you attend? Oh, Robert is off. Please make sure that you call us 03022116991 or 2 and let us hear from you. But and if you take a look at the role of the church, etc., you don't think the interministerial committee and the president, as the executive president of our republic, took all that into consideration?
How did they take that into consideration?
Knowing that the church has mass numbers.
There should be a representation of not just the church. No, let's not limit it to the church. We're talking about religion here. Okay, so if you're taking a decision that borders on religion, you are not a clergyman. You are not imam. You are not a priest. You are not a pastor. You don't have a holistic picture of what religion is. You are not too informed to take a good decision that affects our practices. So the best thing to do is to involve the stakeholders, get them on board. They become a part of the decision, you know, and they will help in taking a good decision that will help both sides.
You're thinking about the money churches will lose? The collection?
Not exactly.
Okay, we'll come back and answer that. Sammy from Tapa is on the line. Sammy?
Yeah.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You've been following our conversation, haven't you?
Yes.
Please, your contribution.
Yeah, my contribution is I do support. Hello.
Please go ahead.
My contribution.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I do support the government directive. Previously, the churches were playing the vital role in human capital. But nowadays, when you go to church, all that you hear is offering and this prophecy. And the church, at times, when you go to a certain church, it's well overcrowded. So government is doing well to protect the citizens of this country.
So, Sammy, you support the ban? That's what you're saying?
Yes. It's helping the...
Oh, I wanted to ask Sammy which church he attends, or does he go to church at all? Okay, so this message says that has outlined, the president has outlined precautionary measures to deal with any catastrophe, and that also means that Ghanaians therefore have no choice but to strictly follow those guidelines so that we can continue to live safely. And he says the president thought well. Okay. The bishop is not saying the president didn't think well. He says that there should have been greater consultation with the clergy. I think that's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right?
And you see, Ro,
please stop calling the line, our WhatsApp line, please.
If I may come in.
Yes, please.
There's a little problem we need to deal with. Some people just take a small sample of churches and their practices and they generalize. Like the ones who are not doing things properly. And they use
You don't think they form the majority?
No, they don't. They don't in any way. They don't in any way. Probably they are loud. They don't form the majority.
Right.
There are very good ministers, there are very good clergymen who are doing the right thing. So let's look at those ones.
Let's go to the Central Regional Capital of Cape Coast. Good morning to you, Gabriel.
Yeah.
Good morning. Where in Cape Coast are you calling from, Gabriel?
Ankafo.
Okay, please go ahead. You've been following our conversations.
Yeah, good morning. I'm calling from Ankafo.
Please lower the volume of your set and go ahead and just make your submission, please.
Yeah, I'm on it. It is of a great joy that say the president want to place a caution on gathering, but I believe strongly that churches has a bigger role to play, as Bishop is saying it on the screen. I believe strongly that we as the churches, we have maybe the cure to some of this problem. And in the days of Elisha, right, there was famine on the land, and one Elisha has to come to the scene to cure the whole Samaria. I believe strongly that as one of the guys did do the submission about the nightclub, I strongly believe that yesterday night or some time ago, even within this week, there will be so many nightclubs going to be operated. And for us as Christians, we have, or we may have, the antidote to some of these things. So the government or the president must also bring us on board.
Gabriel, what do you mean by the church will have antidote, as in the cure for coronavirus?
We have the spiritual antidote. We don't have the physical one, as you say. And we can prove the spiritual one for us as a nation.
There are many cancers, etc., recorded at the various teaching hospitals. Kolebu Teaching Hospital, very cancer patients. There are many ailments that people suffer. The church doesn't always cure them, does it?
Mr. Presenter, let's resort to the men of God on the land. They are carriers of deliverance, and our ability to recognize and believe in this will work things very easy for us. You see, science has failed us. Technology has failed us. Ideologies of man has failed us. But when all these indicators fail, that is when God comes in. And that is what we have to start resorting. God has the capacity, God has the ability to rescue us from this COVID-19 menace.
Your message, the same thing. He was listening to you.
Okay.
So the church is able to provide the spiritual comfort and then the reassurance. That's what you say.
Hope.
So if we have to re-engage the president and the interministerial committee, our first point would be what? To make sure that that aspect of the religious congregation or massing up would have to be reviewed.
Exactly.
Our first message of persuasion to the team, led by the president, would be what?
We are responsible enough to make input into this decision, number one. The government has believed in the capacity of the church in terms of development. The church has been playing a very important role in our society over the years, in education, in health, in other spheres of development. So we shouldn't be taking out now that it's crucial and critical. We are intelligent enough to make wise input into this whole thing. So they should include us. They should get us on board. We have something to tell them that will make sense, that will make this decision better, even if it is good, it can be better.
Well, thank you very much. Let me just read a few of your WhatsApp lines or your WhatsApp messages. Says, hi Roland, this one is from David from Kumasi. Says, I think the president, please stop calling the WhatsApp line. Don't call the WhatsApp line. It's already on your screens, but don't call, please. Just send us a message. Those messages will be read to. One, I have, stop calling. So I have David. I think the president has taken the better decision in the interest of the nation. There is no way the clergy and churches would have agreed to the decision, but they host large numbers as compared to nightclubs, for instance, where in drastic times and health is supreme. This one is from David. Seem to agree with the president. And then we also have from Kumasi, we again have Richard from Kumasi says, Roland, after listening to the bishop, I can say I disagree with him, not following the news, or maybe he's simply being dishonest. Please stop calling. If I should go by his logic, then I can point to him that even the country of the Pope is on lockdown. Okay, I'll ask him right now. If he cares about the people, he will simply accept this instruction and go by it accordingly. For once, they should care about the people and not monetary gains. He says it's not because of monetary gains.
It's very unfortunate that this gentleman or lady is thinking
that way,
in this direction.
He's thinking like the president.
It's not about, no, his thinking is a bit distorted. Making absolute statements that we should be concerned about the people. Why are we here? There are clergymen who are well educated. They can do other things. I have certificates. I can sit in a hospital, practice as a psychologist. I can teach in a university. I am in a church helping people. So it's not about money. If you have seen one or two people exploiting people, it's not a representative of the church. Like I keep saying, there are genuine people helping. It's all about people. It's never about money. I have an organization. I don't even know what goes on financially. They only put financial report on my table at the end of the month. I don't even take a salary. So it's not about the money. And there are a lot of people who have genuine intentions. So it's unfortunate he thinks like that. It's very, very unfortunate.
Let me read one more.
I forgive
I'm
him.
sure this one, you forgive him too. This one from Kwesi in Accra says, stop the hypocrisy, the clergy group. You only have your collection and tithes at heart. This is another unfortunate message, though.
We have forgiven him as well. Yes, he will grow.
Maza, you are forgiven. But thank you very much. We've enjoyed the conversation. And this education is ongoing. And we've had in the studio Bishop Dr. Fred Kranchi-Mensah of the Transformation Assembly. And I know that you would also continue your education among your congregation as well.
Exactly.
Well, so we have MFA Jiradosi, Nancy MFA Jiradosi had an interaction, and please let's watch this and get the latest update.
It's barely 12 hours after President Akufo-Addo announced the complete shutdown of schools across the country. This includes public schools and also private schools and also other tertiary institutions. Now today we got some hints that there was some sort of confusion here at the premises of Morning Star Basic School. When we came here, I had a conversation with the security man who announced and told me that there was no such confusion. However, there were parents who were not aware of the information that was given or the instructions given by the president last night. They had actually come around with their awards, and indeed, a few minutes after our conversation, we saw a few cars and taxis moving into the campus to find out what was going on as they brought their awards, because they say that they did not hear the announcement that was made by the president yesterday. But besides that, everything else is okay. I inquired from the security man because officials of the school will not speak to me directly about whether or not they are allowing their final year student, that is the Form 3 students who are going to write the BECE soon, whether they are allowing them to come to campus today as that was instructed by the president. But they said that none of those are in school today.